rare is it to see a former Prime Minister publicly speak out against the current Prime Minister in the same political party?
Well, you know what? A couple of years ago, I would have said to you it's very rare, but it's become increasingly common under Boris Johnson. This is not a rare intervention by John Major. He has for a while been no fan of Johnson, partly over his attitude towards Brexit, but also due to his attitude towards standards in public life as Major sees it. And then, of course, as well, you have had Theresa May repeatedly standing up in the House of Commons and criticising Boris Johnson. So the world is moving slightly, I would say, on this front. Johnson does seem to have broken the tradition somewhat here and caused all of the previous leaders to rise up against him in a way.
Which would seem an almost unthinkable situation, and yet here we have it. Does it make any difference?
This is the type of speech, I think, that will make a big difference to pretty much nobody at all. If you don't like Boris Johnson, you will look at what John Major has said and said, fantastic, completely agree with him. And if you do like Boris Johnson, then this will just wash over you. I suppose the people who we should most look at, because they are the ones who control the future of the government, are Conservative MPs. And in that case, they tend to fall more on the Johnson side than the Major side, I would say. They differ from Major on issues like Brexit. They view him as being, in the past, they view this as a blue on blue attack, which they tend to not like. So they will probably be pretty scathing of this intervention by Major. But of course, having said that, the other people who are watching this are you and me, the general British public. And we know that the more attention people pay to Boris Johnson and the Downing Street parties and all the furore that's gone around that, the less they like him. So longer term, this probably has slightly more of an impact than it does short term.
It does surely add to the pressure. I wonder how shaky you think Boris Johnson's position remains. You know, we've had pictures of another party. Now we're talking about police investigation of the Downing Street flat interior decoration. It's not really stopping, is it?
It isn't. I would say this week Boris Johnson feels a lot more secure than he has done over the last few weeks. We seem to be in a bit of a stalemate in Westminster, a bit of a waiting game. All the MPs are waiting for what comes next, and we don't know quite what that will be. It may be the Sue Gray report in its entirety. It may be the Metropolitan Police coming forward with their findings. But at the moment, we find ourselves in a stalemate, and a lot of MPs are looking at Boris Johnson's revamp of Downing Street and wondering whether that might be their get out of jail free card in terms of giving him another chance. Also, as well, there has been a little bit of briefing of the newspapers that there might be a big reshuffle over the summer. And I've already had, within about 24 hours of that briefing, a couple of MPs say to me, oh, I imagine some of my colleagues will probably back off after that because they might get promoted if they stay quiet. Well, obviously, some of my colleagues, not me personally, I would never do something like that. So there are various different factors that have calmed the waters somewhat for Boris Johnson. But don't get me wrong, choppy waters ahead, because think of that Metropolitan Police report, think of the Sue Gray report. There's a lot still to come.
Yeah, I mean, has there been any response from government actually to John Major's speech?
Yes, a government spokesperson has said that people are entitled to express their opinions. That's all he's getting in terms of an official response.
And John Major said deliberate lies to Parliament have been fatal to political careers and must always be so. If the Met investigation finds the PM has lied, do you think that there's going to be, well, of course there will be more calls for Johnson to resign, but do you think that the pressure can ratchet up again, or do you think that people really just are fed up of it? And you know, now all eyes are obviously on Russia and Ukraine, and the moment has passed.
There are two different factors at play here. Firstly, the question of whether the Met will find Boris Johnson broke the law. He was asked about that this morning. He was asked if he would resign if that was the case, and he really dodged the question. He doesn't want to nail himself down on either side of that. So that one is a bit of an open question. Then there's the question of whether he lied, or to use the technical term, misled the House of Parliament. That in normal times would be a breach of the ministerial code, probably one of the most egregious breaches of the ministerial code. We have seen very senior government figures go over that before. But who is the ultimate arbiter of the ministerial code? It is, in fact, the Prime Minister, one Boris Johnson. So there is no mechanism for forcing him to go under those circumstances. That's not quite true. There are some slightly arcane mechanisms, but certainly the straight down the road route would be pretty tricky if Johnson didn't want to go. Again, it's all up to his MPs. And at the moment, my sense of it is they just want this to go away. They just want it brushed under the carpet. They are not queuing up, clamouring for Boris Johnson's blood. They just want to be left alone at this stage.
Well, of course, it's the criticism of the Prime Minister that's making the headlines from the speech. But it was a pretty wide-ranging talk, wasn't it? Was there anything else of interest? I'm sure there was something else of interest tackled by John Major.
Well, John Major was talking more broadly about standards in public life and recommending some various different factors that the Prime Minister could implement if he wanted to improve them. So, for example, having a fully independent guardian of ethics in politics. And that really ties into what I was just talking about the ministerial code. Is it correct that you should have someone and a code which answer to the Prime Minister, who are also meant to be holding the Prime Minister and his senior cabinet ministers to account? A lot of people say it isn't. John Major, obviously, among them. Then he was also talking about political funding. He wants to see laws limiting funding by individuals, companies, and trade unions. So, again, you've got these old themes we keep coming back to, particularly after the David Cameron Greensill issue. It's just been a running theme of the last couple of years of politics that a lot of the institutions that we have in order to keep our politics clean have come under strain in recent years. And many politicians are saying it's not enough. Is there political will to change it? I'll be honest, maybe I'm old and cynical, but I think most politicians probably won't end up changing much because, of course, they all do benefit from that increased flexibility that our limited laws do have.